Hey, Steve, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Steve Macenski. I'm the owner of Open Navigation, and we're the company behind the ROS2 navigation stack, or Nav2.
So what have you thought of ROSCON? What have been some of the highlights or standouts for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a great time for the community to come together and for us to all talk about, the struggles, but also the wins for the year and what our hopes are for the future, and hear from companies that are using our work and actually, succeeding well with them. So it's awesome to talk with people in person that may have just submitted their first pull request in the last year, and they're just very excited to be involved in the project. Or even just catch up with the people who are regular contributors, who I know very well, and trying to keep the relationship strong, because that's what helps drive the community forward.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I know. It's so wonderful seeing everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And I had a company that I've worked with, in the way you work with companies in open source, right?
Yeah.
And they were just so excited about the work and how that's part of their businesses. Like, they gave me some local chocolate bar from their village and that
super cool.
made. It's like, yeah, it's just the kind of cool thing to the global impact of our work is really nice.
And the connections that are just all over.
Exactly.
You get to a big community that's all over.
Yeah, exactly. I've taken pictures of with people who are from Korea and China and up here in Europe as well, North America, et cetera, right? And it's really a global community.
For sure. Was there anything in particular, specific, that stood out in terms of work or a company or, I don't know, I guess the Xeno work is very exciting, but anything that has stood out to you in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Xeno work, obviously, and I imagine for other people you've been interviewing as well, the Xeno is the Xeno is the big thing I imagine a lot of people talk about. So I'll skip that and allow somebody else
Love it.
to talk about that more.
Yeah, and I did a big interview with them earlier.
Oh, cool.
They're awesome.
Yeah, exactly. What else stands out? A little bit of a plug, although it's something I genuinely feel is true, so I'm not just saying for any sort of whatever personal review, but AMD is here today, and I've had this work with AMD, so for all your listeners to know, right? They give me money, but they've been working on a lot of these very powerful tools and utilities for robotics. Whether they have this Ryzen AI product, which is the Ryzen CPUs that are destroying all the benchmarks, right? People love this. With their best GPU, their best neural processing unit, all this doodads and whatnots, and it's just stupid powerful. And they threw a couple at me for a product we were working at, and I was just basically trying to figure out, where are the limits of this to make sure I go under it. And I threw just the kitchen sink at it with everything I can imagine, and used about 20% of it. And
that's crazy.
Yeah, it is, and it's far cheaper than a lot of their options. I'm really excited about the work they're putting together. And they're pitching their Embedded Plus platform, which is very similar but more industrialized kind of thing. A little bit weaker CPU, but with that said, it's already really powerful. So I think they're fine with that.
Most applications probably.
Yeah, exactly. They got some real-time cores for they're trying to basically be that board that is everything from hard real-time certified to your application code, your GPU, FPGA, et cetera, et cetera. And so
that's crazy. It's real-time and performant.
Yeah, so it's everything that they're doing over there is really exciting. And I'm more of a kind of a researchy algorithm that's make the systems that work, and other people do the integrations. But I'm starting to get more and more excited about the hardware attached to all this stuff as well.
Oh, totally. Now, segueing a little bit, would you tell me about your company?
Yeah, so Open Navigation, we're the company behind the ROS2 or Nav2 system, obviously. So we spend most of our time working on open source software that powers the mobility industry. So Nav2 is used from anything from autonomous tractors to warehouse logistics robots. In fact, many warehouse logistics robots, but also outdoor large-scale drones, submersibles, boats. Really anywhere with wheels, legs, or surface mobility. Nav2 is being used by either many competitors in the marketplace or at least one competitor in most marketplaces. So we are really stood up to support that community for the long-term future. And so, there's a couple ways that we do that. The most exciting way that I'm most passionate about is through sponsorships, and these are relationships and long-term partnerships with companies that derive direct value from Nav2 by having a product or service that's dependent on it for their own success. And then we work very closely together to ensure that success. And, so this allows us to have resources to be able to develop and maintain the stack long-term, develop new capabilities, keep pushing for the state-of-the-art, but also still maintaining that core software that is so important to the industry and those particular people. But then also give them additional access to, maintainers and expertise they might not have otherwise. Most robotics companies have maybe 5-6 true roboticists on staff for the 200 people doing all the other parts that makes the business work. And so having another experienced person on staff, or they could be on call rather, is really a powerful benefit to them, and it's really nice to keep that as close relationships to me. So that way, like these can be a two-way street of ensuring both our success and building useful things.
Oh yeah, and it helps you with the roadmap and everything else, I assume too.
Yeah, precisely. I have a phrase I use in my pitch deck about this. Is reciprocal benefits, where it's not just me providing value to you, but me understanding your business better and seeing that across a number of businesses, like subtle problems maybe I didn't realize are important. So then we can
use cases, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. We also offer the kind of consulting, contracting kinds of services, primarily around ROS2, NAV2 mobility technologies. If you have a nice, neat little widget somewhere, maybe we also do that too. But primarily around the NAV2 stack, primarily to sponsorships. But we will certainly take any projects that we are uniquely well suited to address.
Love that. I love that you can focus on things you're uniquely well suited to address for that kind of thing. And from my perspective, like companies when they go into a new domain or like they don't have a navigation expert, say. Then they can hire someone and have them scale up for it. But like you have developed the project, not like with a lot of community support and things, but like you've been directing it for years, I think, right?
Yeah, I think about 7 years now. Yeah. And I brought solutions to market myself before.
Oh yeah.
And there are literally hundreds of companies that brought NAV2 to market. And that's not like use NAV2, like fork it, modify all these things. Then
it's like just use it.
It's like, yeah. So I mean,
that's just so exciting. That means that high quality.
Yeah, and I'm sure like you're gonna have some nice pans of the big tall robot in the other room.
Oh yeah, they're a wonderful company.
So they
interview with them also.
So they're very open about the relationship with ROS2 and NAV2 and the nice how are you? Yeah, precisely. But not only that, their stack actually just runs a pinned version of NAV2. They don't have any modifications. They pin a commit just for their own security and standard.
Yeah, they have their own versioning.
Yeah, just to make sure that there aren't regressions that disrupt their flow. But it's just straight NAV2. They use straight MPPI, straight SMAC planner, straight regular pure pursuit. They don't have. Anytime they make modifications, we work together. It goes back to the main line. They directly use that. So, and that's a company with hundreds of robots that are extremely large.
And they're growing quickly, too.
Yeah, and also...
they 5 times in the last year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Something like that. In terms of robots deployed.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and staff, too. I was out at their facility in the...
UK.
It's in the kind of the suburbs of Oxford, and it's very impressive, right? Aluminum comes in... Literally, aluminum sheets come in one side, and robots come on the other side. They do all their fabrication in-house. It's very impressive, though.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, they're awesome. I did a good interview with them that I'll be publishing for this conference, too. And I think they're probably a standout company for me in terms of most high potential, in my opinion. But what do you... so a year from now, what do you hope for the ROS community? Or like, when we come back in a year, where do you think we'll be and where do you hope we'll be?
Well, where will it be or where do I hope we'll be?
Both.
Okay. Where will it be? Where will we be? I'm hoping that, because I know we'll be a tier 1 RMW, probably not default. I think this is, conservatively, the time should go before that becomes the default. I hope that kind of the Gazebo project works out kind of where its competitive location is relative to the market of different simulators, right? We live in a very different world than 10 years ago in terms of simulation options.
Yep.
I think Gazebo is an important project, but certainly I think the niches where it's the best solution are narrowing, and I think that with that narrowing, they should also
embrace it.
They should embrace where they're strong.
Where is that in your opinion?
I think it's being the quote-unquote ROS simulator, being out of box, really well integrated, well supported, well understood, like just working
good plugin architecture and things too.
Yeah, precisely. Just being that really, really nice, clean thing. And I think it's the actual simulator is 95% of the work. We're talking about the 5% of just like integration details, which are complicated and involved, but certainly addressable. That's where I think we will be.
Yep.
I think where I want to be on top of that is, there's a lot of hype around the foundation models and different, AI things going on right now. I'm of two minds about that in general, but irregardless of those in particular, the power of accelerated compute, through things like the NVIDIA Jetson platforms, right, the new Thor thing that's coming out that has, triple the number of CPU cores and like a ton of extra GPU space, and can do like 80,000 times more throughput through the I/O sensors. Yeah, and I'm really excited to see where that's going to take people. And NVIDIA obviously has been a software company, pivoting to robotics for a long time. and they've got some interesting technology pieces, especially when it goes with manipulation. So I'm excited to see where that goes. And I think that that plus the AMD products and the all the other kind of accelerated stuff that Broadcom puts out and what have you. I think it's a different world. I think that we'll be living in 10 years. And I think that we're just starting to see that effects right now.
Yes, very much. And then wrapping up, do you what would be a good way to learn more about your company, and who would be the type of people that should reach out as possible collaborators or sponsors?
Yeah, so if you're either using Nav2 for a product or service, or would like to be using Nav2 for a product or service, those are people that make sense to reach out for sponsorships or kind of the stronger kind of consulting, contracting relationships. I've also done some ROS2 porting type things, and obviously I've written a lot of ROS2 code.
Yes.
I've ported a lot of things for ROS1 and ROS2, so this is how I think I'm very good at doing as well. But yeah, if you're excited about mobility, excited about ROS2, excited about the future, definitely reach out and we can find a way to work together. My website is opennav.org. Admittedly, it's a very bad website. I'm not a web developer, sorry. But also, if you want to see really more Nav2 in play and the power of that, nav2.org, that's the location. You see these beautiful hero videos of robots that land, air, sea, warehouses, outdoor tractors, etc. And you can see all the important features of Nav2 as well attached to that. And then the documentation is all kind of embedded with that site. But nav2.org is a really good resource.
All right, hell yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.